Everybody loves to do an all Alabama team. Everybody loves to do an all Saban team or an all Bear team. But what about the dudes that were coached by neither Bear Bryant or Nick Saban? Don't they deserve a team?
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama, HSA's radio network. Luke Robinson, that's me. And Bama Online's Jimmy Stein, that's him. We want to thank you for making us your first listen or second listen or third listen every single day. Locked On is here for you every day, and we appreciate you guys, and we appreciate you everydayers. You guys have a term. Also, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Thank you, FanDuel. And I'll tell you about FanDuel in just a bit. But, Jimmy, we brought up something. You actually brought this up. This was an idea born of Jimmy Stein. And it was about, look, everybody loves to talk about the Bear days. Everybody loves to talk about the Saban days. But the in-between, while there were some certain caverns and valleys, at the same time, there were some highs, and there were also some really good players. And we kind of felt like they deserved their moment in the sun. So we brought it up briefly on a podcast a couple of weeks ago. And I had some folks reach out and say, yeah, that would be kind of cool if you would do an all non-Bear, non-Saban team. Now, here are the rules. The player on this could not have been coached or recruited by Bear or Saban. Now, we may violate our own rule to a degree because there may be some guys on here that brushed against Bear that we just don't know way back when. But so give us a little bit of slack. And the defense, when we get to that in the third segment, I want to tell y'all this all non-Bear, non-Saban defense, it would stack up there with an all Saban or an all Bear defense. I believe that. So the other places, clear advantages. But let's start at the top, Jimmy. Let's start at quarterback. And I think a lot of people are immediately going to say it's got to be Jay Barker. I don't care about some of the things that have gone on in his life recently or whatever. It's got to be Jay Barker. It doesn't have to be Jay Barker because it's not from our point of view. Yeah. And we're going with Brody Croyle. Brody Croyle has more yards than Jay Barker. I think he's a better, more accurate quarterback. I think that if you give him some weapons and a little bit of time, Brody Croyle could have been as good as any quarterback, just about not named Bryce Young or Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, Brody was a very talented kid. I put Brody as the quarterback too, Luke. Brody was drafted in the third round. I mean, that's a day 2 pick, as we call now. Didn't have a lot of success in the NFL. So I think it's funny how that taints this, right? I mean, it taints it. Whether a player was just going to sort of average at Alabama and spectacular in the NFL, we think of him as a spectacular player. And when a guy is really good at Alabama, but then has a kind of a quiet or not so great NFL career, we go, he wasn't that good after all. And all that really matters to us here is how they perform while at Alabama. And in that sense, Brody Croyle definitely deserves this. He's just the most talented, gifted kid of that era. We're talking about basically from 1983 through 2006 is kind of the time period we're talking here. So that's a long period of time, right? I mean, they're talking about 25 football seasons that were played between Bryant and Saban. And to be the best player of a 25-year period at Alabama is pretty impressive stuff. But Brody, a lot of tools. I wish, in retrospect, somehow Brody had played his entire career for the Saban teams because, boy, you put the surrounding cast, which really hurt him during the time he was at Alabama, but boy, would have helped him if he played during the Saban era because just so much pure talent in that right arm. But Brody Croyle is our quarterback on this post-Bear pre-Saban team.
And even when he had talent, that talent seemed to get hurt or get suspended or get something, So I think Brody Croyle is the correct choice. There are going to be very few on here that you and I disagree with. And we may have to pick and choose here in a minute. But running back-wise, I think pretty much no-brainers. I mean, first of all, Sean Alexander's on there. I mean, I don't think that's even close to a debate.
NFL MVP. That's hard to imagine now because running backs don't usually get that sort of stuff anymore. But Sean Alexander was an MVP in the NFL.
I think ultimately he'll be in the Hall of Fame.
That MVP award is got to carry a lot of weight.
Yep. Then the other running back is Bobby Humphrey. Again, I don't think there's a lot of room for debate here. I mean, where else are you going to go?
Yeah, I mean, Bobby Humphrey was he had problems in the NFL that affected his NFL career. But before he had problems, he was the AFC Offensive Rookie of the Year. So this is an all-time great at Alabama that was an AFC Rookie of the Year. So real super talented. As a matter of fact, I think our youth affects this to some degree, Luke. When we're young, the great are even bigger than life. But nostalgic. Just when I think back, I mean, I think Bobby Humphrey might be as good or better than Sean. I mean, I know that sounds nuts, but I just kind of think of Bobby Humphrey as unstoppable. Didn't play on great teams at Alabama. Played on some good teams, but not great teams. But to me, these two were just far and away. They're two of Alabama's all-timers, regardless of what's happened in the Saban era or in the Bryant era.
No, totally agree. Bobby Humphrey's run against Penn State in 1987. Oh, my God. Look, YouTube that for you youngers and check it out, because it is a run where you're like, oh, my God, is everybody standing still? What you don't know is how bad that turf was. And at the time, how good Penn State was. Penn State was coming off a national championship in 86. So we play them. And by the way, it was a revenge game because they had beaten the heck out of us in 86 behind DJ Dozier, I believe. And then we come back and just hammer them in 87 at their place. It was awesome. But Sean Alexander, his two runs in 96 against LSU that were just unbelievable. Ron Franklin, I remember the first one, he got one man to beat, and then he needs a block downfield, and he gets it. And then the next one, he's like, he doesn't even need a block this time. You can just count. And I remember those. Oh, it gives me goosebumps thinking about them. I love those two runs so much. Then we get to the wide receivers. Now, this is where, first of all, wide receiver, you get Deuce Palmer, no-brainer, an absolute must. Then you get to, you have DJ Hall.
Palmer's my MVP of this team, by the way.
Oh, far and away.
I mean, he's the MVP of the team. And so this is the all Alabama team over a 25-year period. And David Palmer, I think, is the MVP of this team. So
I agree with you.
That was the no-brainerest of the no-brainers is David Palmer. But the other wide receiver spot, it's honestly almost hard to find one that's worthy.
Listen, I'm not. You go DJ Hall, and I'm with you because talent, no doubt about it. He had his own set of issues. He was actually, we couldn't put DJ Hall on this list though, Jimmy. He played for Saban. Because remember, he was on the team. He famously got suspended and then got put back on the team.
Right. I think you're right. That is right. He was on the 07 team. I don't think of because he got suspended.
That's right.
And he got and his best years were before Saban got to Alabama. I guess that was
on the team. We did not vet.
You're going to have to go with not DJ Hall.
Right? Were you going to say Keith Brown?
I was going to say Kevin Lee, but he was. Kevin Lee was a second-round pick in the draft.
He was, but gosh, I need to look up his stats. And I love Kevin Lee. I remember Kevin Lee
wouldn't have great stats because of the offense he played on. Keith Brown's going to have better stats. But Keith Brown was also on that 07. Him and DJ Hall were in the same class. They were in the same class,
yeah.
Yeah, so you can't use him. But I think Prothro's the right answer.
But the problem with that then, all of a sudden, this team has nobody go up and get it. You got to throw it down to them.
Yeah, that's true. Too short 5'8" receivers. But that's the answer. It's Prothro. Probably should have gone with Prothro over DJ Hall anyway, because DJ Hall
would have been suspended.
Time at Alabama was complicated. Yeah, he would have been suspended and missed this All-Star game that we're putting him in. So let's go with Prothro. Let's go David Palmer and Tyrone Prothro. Very similar-ish type players, frankly. Similar-ish.
Kevin Lee's not a bad call. It's not a bad call, but again, we don't know how good he could be because he played at a time when you just didn't throw the ball to anybody.
Yeah, he didn't have great stats and played on the same team with David Palmer. So Palmer was getting the few balls that were thrown were going to him, but Kevin Lee had a ton of natural ability, which is why he was a second-round pick of the Patriots, I believe.
I think that's right. So, all right, Jimmy, when we come back, we're going to talk about both lines of scrimmage. Want to tell you about FanDuel, though. FanDuel's the best. You know it's the best. Come on. Who you kidding? I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everybody every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Okay, so lines of scrimmage for both sides of this pre-Saban, post-Bryant era. Again, the rules are they couldn't have been recruited or played for either one of these dudes. And first, at tight end, this is gonna take some folks back. And here's the other thing that's a problem. Like if the offense were to face the defense, you're going to see the defense would eat the offensive line, because I think the defensive line and defense overall is just so much better than the offensive line. But tight end is Howard Cross. He played in the NFL, I think, from around 1985 through 2021. He was in the NFL forever.
And such a good player.
And his son plays for Notre Dame now, by the way.
I'm sure he would tell you, and he was a good player at Alabama. High C is his nickname. He was a better player in the NFL than he was at Alabama. Now, I'm sure that was due to usage, and probably left Alabama, got a great chance playing the NFL because he left Alabama a really good blocker. And in the NFL, they developed him into a quality receiving threat. Really, Howard makes this team as the tight end, largely based on, I think, what he did in the NFL. Although at Alabama, he was a very good player, an outstanding blocker on the edge on those Ray Perkins teams.
Okay, so the offensive line, and we're going to spend a little less time on each one of these because we also have to do the defensive line. But number one, biggest, maybe the second biggest no-brainer on this list is Chris Samuels. College football Hall of Famer, going to be an NFL Hall of Famer. I think he's going to be an NFL Hall of Famer. He was just awesome.
Yeah, great player. One of the great offensive linemen in Alabama history, arguably the best. I mean, he definitely a major star in the history of Alabama football.
Justin Smiley, again, very good. If I were doing an all Saban or all Bear team, first, second, or maybe even third team, I'm not sure he'd make it, though.
Yeah, I think the offensive line, Luke, I think in terms of why wasn't Alabama great during those 25 years? I think putting together this all-star team is illuminating in that way, because we struggled to fill out wide receiver and we struggled to fill out the offensive line. And we're talking about 25 years of football, and it's not what, Justin Smiley is a good player, definitely a good player, played in the NFL, 49ers, I think, and maybe the Dolphins.
He's very good.
Good player. But over a 25-year period, was he the second best offensive lineman at Alabama? That's hard to believe, isn't it?
It is hard to believe, especially considering what we've had of late and how many offensive linemen have been drafted by Alabama and how many great offensive linemen the Bear had. So, okay, then you get to Evan Mathis. Again, played in the NFL for a while, very good player. I would put him in the category. I feel like Justin Smiley, Evan Mathis, and then these next two guys, Wesley Britt and Wes Neighbors, all really solid. Nobody is going to put them on an all Saban or all Bear team.
That's exactly right. I agree. I think it just answers the question. Boy, for 20, obviously there's a revolving door of coaches and all this other reasons why that 25-year period for Alabama didn't work out well. But when you put together this list of all-stars on the offensive line, you're like, wow, even the best of the best would struggle to have started on these Saban teams, Well, and Evan Mathis, by the way, much like Howard Cross, better NFL career than Alabama career. It's because he's developing. I think Alabama started developing his talent, which became fully developed in the NFL. Evan Mathis was an extremely good NFL player and was good at Alabama. I think Mathis, Smiley, and Britt were all on the same team.
What other thing strikes me? You look at this team now. Humphreys from Kentucky. I guess we ended up going with Prothros to take DJ Hall off. think I'm not sure where Howard Cross played. Was he from Florida?
No, he's from Alabama.
He was from Alabama. Okay.
Mhm.
Chris Samuels from Alabama. Evan Mathis from Alabama.
Yeah, Birmingham.
Justin Smiley,
Georgia.
That's right. Wesley Britt from Alabama and Wes Neighbors from Alabama. I mentioned Croyle and Palmer and Humphrey, and good. It was all Alabama guys back then. That's the other thing. Our recruiting net has widened so much that, of course, we're going to get more talent. We're either going to bomb out or get a lot more talent.
That's a great observation there about how local that team was for 25 years. It just goes to show these younger people now that are following college football, they don't really know what it was like, quote, back then. And it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
But recruiting used to be pretty local. And why? It was pre-internet, and you didn't know as much about the other teams. But secondly, the players' families wanted to see them play. They weren't going to – the ease of travel. It's easier to travel now than it was in the 80s and 90s and 70s. And that's a big part of it. But, boy, that was a good observation about how many of these guys are local from Alabama.
Okay, and then another thing that makes the offensive line look not so sexy is the defensive line they have to go up against. Here's your defensive line, all non-Saban, non-Bear. Eric Curry and John Copeland.
Of course.
Maybe honestly, I mean, somebody will from somewhere will refute this. Maybe the best two defensive linemen in any one year in terms of production anywhere. Then Derek Thomas and Cornelius Bennett on the edges. Oh, my God. You have no – this is where I'm like, maybe we should have put Jay Barker back there because Brody Horn going to kill.
Those would be tough practices to survive. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about in all-time college greats, all-time NFL greats in Derek Thomas and Cornelius Bennett, and, of course, Curry and Copeland. That's a pretty strong front for sure. And you're leaving so many good players out, but
you're leaving a ton. But you
got to use those. But those four have to be out there.
You're like, okay, let's take those four and move them over here. You know what those four are? Yesterday, I played basketball over at Lifetime, and me and some of the other guys that are like, older or not as good as some of these other dudes. We hate it when this happens. But like somebody really good will step in, you like, or two good guys will step in the gym. You're like, okay, now we got 10 we can play. They're like, nah, we're just going to warm up and hang out. And what they're doing is waiting for some more mediocre players to come in so we can get our 5-on-5. And then their friends come in who are also 5 stars. And then they got a team that'll play all day. And, we're like, hey, we should sort of, split this up a little bit. But no, nobody wants to do that. But I'm saying that's the way it should be, like Eric Curry and John Copeland, and put them to the side. And then if you want to have it, you could have a non-Bear, non-Saban, non-Curry, Copeland, Thomas, Bennett team. I mean, that's about how you'd have to do it because those four are just different. So, okay, Jimmy, can't wait to get into the linebackers and defensive backs and even some of the special teams guys. And that's what we're going to do right here. I hit the wrong button, but I think I'll be able to figure this out. I hope I will. I hope they will. Somebody. Anywho, somebody will do it. Somebody will handle that. We'll get somebody to clean that up. Okay. When it comes to the defense, the backside of the defense, here's Alabama's linebackers, according to Luke and Jimmy. And again, tell me how you're going to change this. You're not. You're not going to change this. Keith McCants, who, look, I've interviewed Keith McCants. Dude was out there. He's a little bit different. I had him on a Sports Blitz program. It was one of the wildest interviews I've ever done with anybody. I'm not like this great interviewer, but just like he was just different. But as far as an athlete goes, people forget, I think he was taken either number 4, number 5 in the draft, somewhere by the Bucks. He was a menace. He once ran down Shane Wasden for Alabama in the 89 Iron Bowl. And everybody thought Shane Wasden was one of the fastest, outside Alexander Wright, was probably the fastest player on Auburn's team. And Keith McCants ran him down like it was nothing. I mean, he was just
250 pounds.
Yeah, just a freak.
He's as freakish a defensive athlete as Alabama's ever had. Just for those unfamiliar with this game, this is a 250-pound inside linebacker that ran like a deer. He was so fast.
Again, Google him.
Physical as all get out. fun to watch him when, it ended up being a top 5 pick in the NFL draft and had sort of a controversial, not so great NFL career, partly due to his own doings. But also the Buccaneers moved him. I mean, he was an inside linebacker to Alabama. The Buccaneers drafted him like number 4 or 5 in the draft and immediately moved him to a defensive end position.
Yeah, it was
and he didn't. That wasn't his skill set, really. I mean, that wasn't what he was best at. But boy, Keith McCants a dominating player for Alabama, and particularly his final season at Alabama, which was 1989.
Dwayne Rudd and D'Amico Ryans, the other 2 inside linebackers. I challenge you to find 2 that would be better. I don't know of any 2 that'd be better. And now what's weird is, we all love these guys from their college time, but Keith McCants is probably known best for, I guess you could categorize him as a bust in the NFL. Dwayne Rudd, probably most known for, he was fine in the NFL, but then he's probably most known for one of the dumbest take off your helmet and throw it moments in NFL history while the game's still going on that ended up costing his team a win. I think it was the first game of the year that year. And D'Amico Ryans is better known for being a coach than he is a player right now. And people forget, shoot, he was a real good player. Wasn't he the AFC Rookie of the Year on defense?
Yeah, I think so. He was an all-star player in the NFL. Now, he wasn't headed to the Pro Football Hall of Fame as a player. He wasn't a Pro Football Hall of Fame player, but he was an all-star player in the NFL and fantastic at Alabama. That's another guy, Luke, much like Brody Coyle. Oh, I wish D'Amico Ryans had played for Saban during the Saban years. Saban would have loved him.
He was a Saban bot before there was a
Saban bot, but boy, that well put.
Yeah. So all 3 of those just great. Now, and then the defensive backs. I think there's maybe one like leaky spot that's sort of like, but I understand it, and I still think he's also maybe the best athlete of this group. But then Antonio Langham at one cornerback, Fernando Bryant at the other one. Fernando Bryant was great. I don't think Fernando Bryant's and Antonio Langham's.
No, he's not. He's not. I struggled picking. I know. Looking at it, it's tough finding another corner.
Yeah.
I mean, Langham's all time. I mean, he's headed to the College Football Hall of Fame, as we know, very deservedly. Langham, a better corner than anybody in the Saban era. I know that sounds nuts, but that's how I feel after watching him play. But that other corner spot was tough. But let's remember this about Fernando Bryant. Good player at Alabama, first-round pick. He was a first-round pick in the draft. That ultimately is what got him a nod here.
Yeah, he very good player. There's no doubt about it. And I would definitely put him – he would either be on the first or second team. But it's gosh, I'm having trouble.
Trouble. Considered John Mangum there. Who
John Mangum would have been a good choice.
He had a long, good career in the NFL, Chicago Bears.
And Jimmy, it's too early in the morning. I'm having a brain moment. I'm having a senior moment. The other cornerback on the 92 team who had an interception in the Sugar Bowl. I'm sorry?
Tommy Johnson.
That's who I couldn't remember that for the life of me. Tommy Johnson. He could have been an option, but he just wasn't. I don't think Fernando Bryant's more of the. I think when you put Bryant and Langham together at cornerback, that's 2 dynamic guys who, if they get the ball, they can return it. They can take it to the house.
People will be surprised to hear this. I knew less about football then than I know now, which I know that's why people are surprised to hear that. Well, that can't be possible, Jimmy. But I say that to say I'm still confused as to this day as to why Tommy Johnson wasn't an NFL player.
Yeah,
I mean he was a fantastic player at Alabama. The whole time he was here, he was great. No NFL career. Oh, and a super kid. It had nothing to do like a DJ Hall situation.
Yeah, he was a good kid.
Tommy Johnson was a superhuman being. Great, perfect Boy Scout. No one. It must have been speed, but I'd swear watching him play, that dude could run. You watch him play, and I didn't know how to speed, but it must have been it.
I don't know, but it just didn't work. And then at safeties, you got Teague, George Teague, of course, and Roman Harper. Now, arguably, neither one of these guys athletically, if you ask me, is Mark Barron or Landon Collins or something like that. They just are, or Caleb Downs. But what they were was just gamers. They were like, okay, You might be faster than me, but what I'm going to do is jam you up, and then that's not going to matter. Or I'm going to be in the right place at the right time, and I'm going to make the play. George Teague, of course, in the 92 Sugar Bowl, most known for that. But Roman Harper recovering the fumble against he didn't recover the fumble, did he?
He knocked the ball out
against Tennessee.
Knocked the ball out against Tennessee, Arian Foster.
Yeah, Roman Harper, just two very cerebral guys. So, I kind of like this. Then now that I just thought about it, your cornerbacks are sort of take chances, and if I don't get it, I'll take it to the house. And I can take an even bigger chance because I know the dude behind me going to be in the right spot.
Yeah, these are two good safeties. Roman Harper, though, reminds me a little bit. While Roman was a very good player at Alabama, not discounting that at all. Much like a couple of other guys we named, like Howard Cross, Roman probably a better NFL player than he was out. I mean, a long time, very successful NFL player for both the Saints and the Panthers. But Roman was good at Alabama and certainly good enough to make this team. And again, it's a pretty big deal. I mean, I know people like, hey, this was the period of time Alabama wasn't Alabama.
Yeah.
The period between Bryant and Saban. Some of those teams were exceptional. There was a national championship during that period of time too. But to make an all Alabama team that spans 25 years is a big deal. And everybody on the defense is a good player. Again, struggled a little bit on the second corner. But other than that, that defense was really good. I think the question marks are still offensive line and wide receiver outside of David Palmer.
And just for the record, I'm going to run down the guys that were from Alabama on this defense. Eric Curry was probably Will Anderson before Will Anderson in terms of, Georgia just let him get away.
He was in Georgia. Yeah, he was a prop 48, and that's
right. That's right.
Thing.
And John Copeland was a JUCO.
John Copeland did go to JUCO originally, though he's from Alabama, from Valley, Alabama, but Copeland had to go to Hines Junior College.
So then Derek Thomas from Florida, Cornelius Bennett from Birmingham, obviously, Keith McCants from Mobile, Dwayne Rudd from Mississippi.
Batesville, Mississippi.
Batesville. And he had a heck of a teammate that could have been a cornerback for this team, too.
Serious consideration given to Deshae Townsend on that side, who had a better NFL career than Fernando Bryant.
Rudd, which is so
Fernando Bryant and Dwayne Rudd.
And Antonio Langham, for that matter. Yeah.
That's true because Deshae stayed healthy and played a long time, and he was basically a 3-star type kid.
Then you've got Antonio Langham from Bama, George Teague from Bama, and Roman Harper from Bama. Teague from Jeff Davis and Roman Harper from Prattville, Langham from the now defunct Town Creek, or at least the now defunct high school, I guess. But
Hazelwood High School, I think was the name of that high school.
Hazelwood, yeah. So Fernando Bryant was from Tennessee. So again, just more Alabama guys playing for Alabama.
We should have gone with Townsend over. Should we go with Townsend over Fernando Bryant?
I'd be okay with it. I remember Deshaun Townsend had a huge interception in a SEC championship game against Florida, but we didn't win that game.
He was a good punt returner too.
He was a good punt returner.
He was the punt returner that replaced David Palmer. Remember, Palmer was the punt returner, and then
David Palmer.
Then when Palmer moved on to the NFL, our next punt returner was Deshae Townsend, who was good. He was just not David Palmer.
You know who I'd love to have on this list, but we can't by our own definition is Javier Arenas. We can't do it though.
Yeah, because he played for Saban. Yeah.
I mean, he played a lot for Saban too.
Yeah, so. He played a more significant role. That's why I couldn't remember DJ Hall playing for Saban. I think DJ Hall might have played. He was constantly in trouble and played about 3 games. I don't know.
But okay, so and then kicker I think you got to be Philip Doyle.
Philip Doyle. I mean, some people will say Van Tiffen because they remember the kick against Auburn, but Philip
Doyle did this. He did the finger Tennessee. Guns. Van Tiffen didn't do finger guns.
Doyle's numbers better across the board than Van Tiffen. So you got to go Philip Doyle, and then the punter I think would obviously be Chris Moore, who left Alabama and then punted in the NFL for 1,000 forevers.
Yeah, he punted in the NFL a long time. Like he was with Howard. He roomed with Howard Cross their entire NFL careers, I think.
Really?
28 years.
Wow.
That's
28 years.
Just made up. Little known to untrue fact. From my imagination. Okay.
So that's it. That's the all post-Bear pre-Saban team.
Kind of fun. I enjoyed doing this. So
yeah,
I hope you enjoyed listening to it. I know it's not new news, but it was fun news. So until next time, everybody, roll tide.
Roll tide.